Good afternoon, good evening, good day, everyone. James Hicks here, Hicks New Media. Welcome to another episode of Perspectives in Focus. Today today's a special day. All shows are good shows, but this is definitely going to be one that you definitely need to make sure that you're tuned into. Get your pencil paper, get your pen. You should be recording as well, because my guest today, Mr. Chris McPhee. Chris is a retired U.S. Army veteran and Green Beret. He turned professional photographer and project manager after his service. After 21 years of his military service, his new mission is teaming up with organizations to help them share their message and their story via the media channels of photography, video, and podcasting. And he accomplishes that as the owner of Green Beret Media and one of the co-founders and the chief marketing officer of Triple Nickel Apparel. Today, we do have a topic that we're going to get into, but I definitely have to set some context. I'm going to let Chris come in, tell the folks who he is, but folks, definitely buckle in and welcome to the stage. Chris, I got to bring you on like Steve Harvey, right? You know, comedy. I don't know. I want to make it right, but first and foremost, before we get into this, let me see what you got on underneath. Let me see what you rock. Oh my Lord! If if we not boys to men up in here, I love it.
We twins now. We twins.
Nothing wrong with being right, brother. Nothing wrong with being right.
Ain't nothing wrong with being right.
I see folks coming in the comments. It's good to see folks. I'm gonna go ahead and acknowledge comments and things of that nature.
Nice.
Mr. Junaid, I see you in here.
Ooh, look who's that.
Yes.
My boy. My boy.
I love it. My dad is here too. I told him to chime in specifically for this event as well. Look, man, let's go ahead and get into it, man. I want to stop beating around the bush. I want to get focused. You know, that's my mission for the year. That my word for the year. Let's start with a little background. Again, I wanted to set some context. I want folks to understand who you are. Kind of in the monologue, you know, I said long military history, and first and foremost, we thank you for that service. We thank you for what you did. We know there's some trying times out there being in the military, but you are back and you are doing service after service. Right. So I definitely want to talk a little bit about that, but give people some context of your upbringing, where you came from, what you did in the military, as much as you can share, and then kind of what you're doing now, if you don't mind, sir.
No, thanks, James. First and foremost, I appreciate you for having me on today, and everybody. I'm thanking you right now for your time and your attention. And what I like to do, if we have some Back to the Future fans out there, because I was a Back to the Future kid growing up, and let's jump into DeLorean. And we're gonna go back in time, a little back in time. And for me, my story starts in Miami, Florida. I grew up in Miami, Florida. And when I graduated high school in 1994, I joined the military right away. You know, it was either go be Metro PD, go to college, or go to the military. So the military was it. That was my option to get out of South Florida, the inner cities of Miami. And I found myself in basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And then later on, I ended up at Fort Riley as an admin clerk. So somewhere in there, I was like, hey, this is cool, but I want more. And I saw an opportunity to become a Green Beret. So I started training up. I had no clue about, you know, road marching with heavy weight on my back. I had no clue about small unit tactics, you know, combat arms, as we know in the military and the Marines and the Navy and those combat forces. But I was in shape. I was an athlete. I wrestled in high school. I played football. I was in great shape. So I just needed to learn all the technical aspects of being a commando, or what you might call it. And I went to what we call Special Forces Assessment and Selection. And going through that, if you've seen some of the videos online, like, you know, the journey of a Green Beret, it was 3 weeks of some grueling gut checks to see if you are the person or not. So, you know, now that I've taken that walk and I'm on this side, I realize when you go to an event like that, BUDS or any of these Ranger qualification type assessment courses in the military, you are that person already. you have the attributes already. You just don't know it. And that's what they're trying to figure out if they want to bring you on across the bridge and show you that you're that person and give you some more skills and some more techniques to carry on your new mission. So that's what happened to me. After 21 days, I've been trial, tested, weighed, measured, and over again for 3 weeks. And I made the cut. And then I moved on to what we call the Special Forces qualification course. And I signed on as a communication specialist. That's what I requested because I had a technical background. I was into computers and I like electronics. So I became a Special Forces communications expert on the operational detachment alpha. That's what we call the A team, the Green Berets, the A team. Nothing like the show back in the day, the A team with B.A. Baracus and Hannah. And
Make
that was
it
one of
plain,
my
brother.
favorite
Yeah, make
shows.
it plain, brother. You nothing like Mr. T.
You know, that
You
was
better than
one of my
Mr. T.
favorite shows, man. So I didn't get the gold chain in the mohawk, but they gave me a rucksack and a lot of skills to help me be safe on the battlefield, and also to train, advise, and assist foreign nations, other what we call conventional army units, and just be the coach, guides, and mentor on the battlefield. And so, after about a year and a half of training, I was at Fort Bragg where I took all my training, so I stayed there, and I went to Third Special Forces Group. After 2 years, we ended up in Afghanistan. So I spent a rotation of 6 years going back and forth to Afghanistan. I spent a 3-year tour at the schoolhouse teaching, you know, other young troops like myself when I first joined Special Forces, and teaching them what I learned on the battlefield during my combat tours to Afghanistan. And then I went back to an A team, did about 3 more years on the team, and then went to our command, our Special Forces command, to take on another mission, and retired in 2015. So that was, the Reader's Digest version,
Right.
crossing that bridge into the civilian world. And with media, people always ask me, like, well, how'd you get into photography and video? And most combat arms guys or special ops guys, we know they're on the market. They get out, they either open some shooting school or something related to what we did in service, either a security, a consultant agency, which I do run one of those. It's kind of a low vis item, but I am in the security consultant realm, and I still do that, a couple, 2-3 times out of the year. So, I decided, I was like, I transferred, I retired, I transitioned, I ended up in Washington, D.C. I became an intel analyst, and I started deploying again. And after a while, I was just like, I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to deploy. The money's good. Yeah, I'm a contractor. I'm deploying to Kuwait. I'm still in the fight mentally, and I just want to get out. And I miss my family. I've been deploying and doing stuff for the last 17 years I spent in Special Forces, and I was just ready for a change. And so that's where one of my surveillance kits, I was like, you know what? A good friend of mine, his name is Rod Rodriguez, introduced me to podcasting. I had no clue about podcasting. This was 2017. And he was like, hey, man, I'm like, what are you doing with that mic? Why I always see you talking into this microphone every evening? He's like, yo, I got a podcast. And he's going to kill me for that impression of him. But he's like, I got a podcast and this is what I do. I talk to people and I interview veteran entrepreneurs about their business. And his podcast was called the AAR podcast, the After Action Review. It's something we do in the military and probably in other forces. When you complete a mission or you do an activity, you figure out what went right, what went wrong, and what you can do better, what's your sustains and improvements. And so that's what he did. And I just was inspired by what he was doing. And he started teaching me about, he's like, get a Blue Yeti first. It was like this in 2017 was not happening.
Right.
This right here, this I was still like, hey, I'm special forces. I can't talk to nobody.
Don't look at me. I'm not on camera.
Don't
All
look
that,
at me.
right?
Don't look
Yeah,
at me. You know, I was still in that mindset.
yeah.
So in 2017, this wasn't happening. All of this you see, this wasn't happening. But I give it to him for the inspiration to showing me something that I could get into. And I was like, hey, he's like, you ever heard of Gary Vee? And I was like, what? Who's this guy? I said, I'm listening to John Maxwell over here and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. You know, that's where I get my
Right,
motivation.
right.
You know, I'm old school, you know? And he's like, no, you should check it out. So I went back to my bunk that night. I got on my phone and I was like, okay, I'm digging this. I like this. This is new. This is new. And after that, man, Green Beret Media was born.
I love it.
I picked up my surveillance cam. I got with a rock band in DC, Shriner, shot with them for like a year and a half and met a good, my mentor was at the time, at that time, I'm dating myself a little bit. I was probably about 42 and he was like 21. So that was my mentor because he was already doing photo and video and making reels and doing the things that I'm doing now. And he invited me to shoot a quinceañera with him. And he was like, look, man, your shots are good, man. You should do this. So another, push of inspiration. I did it, shot with the rock band for 18 months before they even paid me.
Wow.
At the time, I tell people, I said, when you start out on some of these career paths, like in the creative world, and I'm not saying I'm lucky, but I had already completed one career, right? And I saved my cash, and this is something I'm doing at age 42. I want to be a photographer. I want to be a videographer. I want to do something fun for a change. So,
Gotcha.
and that's what I got. So I did that, and I learned a lot. I met a lot of people. I taught myself all of this through a lot of YouTube videos and people like our buddy on right now, Janae, meeting him, and other guys, Mike Whitlow, met those guys, and everybody eventually giving me an option, an opportunity to show off my skills. And one thing I've learned in special forces is you have to be able to teach yourself, because sometimes you get sent away by
Mm,
yourself or a team of 2 or 3. And so if I'm going to be the one teaching, advising, and assist, so I should be able to teach myself too. So when we talk about influence, we talk about leadership. I'm a big advocate of, if you're going to do any of that, you got to start from within. And that's my mindset. Is like, if I need to start here, then I can push it out. But I'm not going to push it out if it's not happening here first.
I love it.
So and I master it here. And so when you're seeing it, like you're seeing this,
Yeah.
I've already worked on it in here in the dark, and taking some hits and training in the afternoon and the nights, and going to Toastmasters, getting beat up at Toastmasters, joining the John Maxwell network, and just putting myself out here on camera. And like, so this is it's okay now. I'm
This is
cool. I'm
you.
cool with this now. I'm cool
So
with this.
you're comfortable in yourself, in your own skin. And let me show you something. I put my book out here. I know you know
Oh!
the book. I got my look. I'm a John Maxwell guy myself. So yeah.
Look at him. Oh, hold
Yeah.
on, where's my book?
You
There
don't
we
even
go.
know where yours is, man. I come prepared, right? Oh Lord. He is
man.
moving out of the shot, folks. Don't trip
Matter
over
of
no
fact, this
cords.
is a signed copy.
Okay. Hold on. Did he sign mine? Hold on. No, didn't nobody sign mine, but I got something else.
This is a signed copy.
Okay.
And not to get off the rail, but I did a speaking engagement about a week ago in Utah with the Spencer Leadership, and all the folks there signed my book.
That's awesome.
And we spoke on the law of influence. We spoke on the law of influence. So
You should have wore your
we
shirt. Yeah,
represent.
you should have wore your shirt. Let
We rep-
me backtrack a little bit, man. And I
yeah.
appreciate you for going into that detail about you, because it sets context for folks to understand who Chris McPhee is. But there was a lot to unpack there, and there were some questions that I want to ask before we even get to our
Okay.
topic.
Nice.
Especially around the military service, and did being in the military, or before you got into the military, did that kind of, where did the motivation for you to be a leader, be someone who is control of aspects and things around you, right? To turn into that project manager, to turn into that communications expert. Was that something that was kind of, you felt was innate to you, or was that something that going through training, going through your courses, going through your time in the military, that brought out of you?
Mhm.
Because I
So
always state from my perspective that I can't motivate you. Right. You actually have to have that within yourself. I can't go out and motivate you to do something. You have to want to do these things to get better, to progress and be positive and things like that.
honestly, I'm gonna say it started before I joined the military.
Mm,
There's a book I read last year during my master's program by Robert Greene, Mastery. If you've anyone has read that book, and he speaks about the protege mentor relationship, and then he speaks about how do you gain a level of mastery. Well, you have to go back to a point of origin where you felt that thing that you're trying to do, you feel that you were doing it at your highest. So for me, I thought about that when I read that, and I went back in time when I was in high school and I was on a wrestling team. So my freshman year, my coach, he came and got me from the junior high. I was like, "Hey, you gonna join the wrestling team?" And I blew him off the first year. The second year, he came back to me and he threatened me. And so I showed up, and he trained. I trained with the team, and I ended up on a national team that year at representing the state of Florida at the freestyle Greco-Roman nationals. And at that time, I was the team captain. I was in football. I was always a team captain. I was on the cross country. I was a team captain. I was on a wrestling team. I was a team captain, but I wasn't a vocal team captain. I was
mm,
a lead by example team captain, right? Because I was still, a shy person during those times, but it was from within, and I had not been releasing it yet. And so that leadership of setting the example and being the person out front, going early to practice, staying late for practice, helping guys that needed help. And once I got into the army started forcing that for me to be leading up and out. All right.
okay. Interesting.
And, it just pushed me. I was in admin. So admins are really, it's like customer service. It's, there's no yelling. I went to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to an infantry unit where I was an admin in garrison in Fort Raleigh, and I wasn't used to this environment, and everybody was cursing, and it was like
Mm.
"f this, f that," and I'm like, "Hey, I'm used to saying, 'Sir, hey, how can I help you?'" and being, but they're like, "No," and now I have to lead these soldiers. They're pack clerks too. Some of the infantry guys I got in my office, their personnel administration center where I led and I was in charge of, I had regular admin soldiers, but then I had infantry soldiers that were hurt or injured. So they sent them to my office, to the personnel office to heal up and also put them to work. So these guys are used to being talked to hard, and I'm like trying to be a nice guy, and they're just running all over me. So what I had to do, hey, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. I had to level up. I mean, I'm not from no punk neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm from the Liberty City in Dade County, Florida. I'm not from no punk neighborhood. So I had to, you know, lead up in it, push up and out, and let them know, like, hey, I'm in charge here. I'm here to help you out. And it was a balance.
Right.
But once I got to Special Forces, it really pushed me because it was like you talk about, and I'm right with you. I could inspire you,
Yes.
I could give you assistance, I could give you direction and some motivation, but you have to do the work. And that's one of the attributes of a Green Beret. You have to be a self starter, you have to be self motivated. Nobody motivates you to do nothing. If you have to run, you got to do it on your own. They're like, hey, we're going here, you got to get your work done. Nobody's going to tell you you need to pack this, this, and this. You have to wake up late And when the team's ready to go and you're not ready, you probably got 1 strike, 2 strike, and the third time your stuff is going to be in the hallway.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it's I'm with you on that. I don't, people like, yeah, I'm a do 110%, 120%. I don't believe in the plus 10 or 20. Give me 100. But if you're on a team and I'm doing 120, that means somebody's doing 80.
That's true. Wow. And that's perfect, right? Because that you answered the way that I was hoping. So I kind of set you up. I did. Because that leads it.
I know. Hey, I told you. I've been working on this. I've been working. This ain't my first rodeo. I know what the people want.
See,
they want to hear so.
That's true. We want to hear the story, and that really leads us into the context of the concept of living life in the gap.
Ooh.
Right. And you've already touched on some of those, right? Because each letter of the gap for you stands for something in particular. You've already talked about the A, about being authentic, but let's walk through what living in the gap and still being true to yourself means, regardless of the situation that you're in. It could be military, it could be photography, it could be videography, it could be content creation, it could be life, it could be personal, professional. But let's talk a little bit about living life within a gap and go over that for the folks.
Okay. Thank you for that softball. thank you for the softball. So, I have to give you a little bit of short backstory, real 30-second. We're all listening to motivation podcasts. We're reading books. We're following people. We have YouTube, and we're in this era of motivation, and we need it. People are seeking it because I guess there's a lack of it within people's selves. They're not able to produce it and inspire it on their own. So we're looking outward. We're looking at podcasts. We're reading books. We're looking to other icons, sports, whatever it is. You're looking up, what could be the religion, whatever it is, you're looking for inspiration and motivation. And one day I was listening to a podcast, and I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and I was listening to him. He was saying something about the game and this and that. And, I wouldn't say he kind of used the same term a little bit, but I was like, well, you know what, Chris, you need like a signature buzz like that,
Mm-hmm.
And so I started this last year. I was invited on to a podcast for veterans in transition. So I've spoken on several of those with veterans in transition, because I'm still in transitioning myself. I think I'm almost feeling myself that, like, I can say I've crossed the bridge from being in the military to like living the other life as a regular day-to-day and not a military regimented life. So I was sitting down and I was like, well, like you say, living in the gap, the life, people say you got to learn the game of life. That's a true statement. Depending on how you look at it, whether you want to believe it or not. When I was in school, I had to learn the game. I had to stay out of trouble, be in school, show up. I joined the military, same thing. I had to learn the game. I had to learn how to do, my boots and military bearing and being on time, 10 minutes prior, always looking good, clean haircut on Monday, uniform press on Monday. And that was the game. And I was like, well, I joined Special Forces. I had to learn the game. I mean, nobody's going to tell me what to do. So I had to teach myself. I had to reach out and go ask questions and read books. And, my first team sergeant told me on day one, he was like, hey, Smurf, that was my tag. He's like, I want to tell you something. For the first year, you need to shut up and you need to learn your job. And that's what I did for 12 months. I learned the game of being a communicator, what it took to be an operator on an SFA team, how to operate in a company. And it didn't stop there, because it was every day, all the way up to the day I retired, I was learning the game of being an operator. And so that's where the G and the gap comes from. We hear gap analysis. We're always looking to fill those gaps, whether it be in our lives, in our relationships, at work, with our kids. We all have gaps. We all have gaps. If you don't have a gap in your life right now, I don't know what to tell you. You're not being authentic. So
Yeah.
that brings me to the
Well,
A.
so hold on, no, because I'm gonna bleed this out just a little bit. So talking about being uh training for as a communicator and just being open to and receptive to that learning, right? I think it takes something as well, because if you're going to be successful in that role, you had to tell yourself to be humble in the moment and say, I've signed up for this. I understand what the regimen is going to be, and in order for me to know, learn, live this game, I'm going to have to be receptive to these orders, to be receptive to these commands, and be receptive to what I'm being told to do. I think the ones who are willing to do that, right, pause and humble themselves. I'm going to take us to church here for a minute. Let me bring some Nas hits into, but to be able to
What?
to pause and humble
What?
yourself and be receptive to that. I think those are the ones that succeed. Those are the ones that continue to thrive inside of the military, outside the military, personal and professional lifestyles. Talk to me what your thoughts are on that statement that I made there, because you didn't have to pause yourself. You know, when your commander said, for the first 12 months, for the first year, you're just going to be quiet and you're going to listen, you're going to learn. You could have packed up and you could have turned around and walked out.
Yeah,
Wouldn't have
yeah.
looked good on the LinkedIn profile. It wouldn't look good on the resume. It would have had probably some other detrimental effects. But you committed to stepping outside of yourself, from outside of the tough streets that you grew up on and things like that, right? And be a student and actually learn something that you did not know.
Mm.
How challenging was that? And I'm asking also for folks coming up behind us, because I'm always looking at the youth as well. How do we instill that type of a mindset into? I'm going off the cuff a little bit. We're gonna get to the A. We're gonna get to the A.
No, no,
But
no.
again,
I'm with you.
but
No, I got some more. I got
okay,
some more for you. I'm
you know,
with you.
how do we instill that type of mindset of being able to listen, pause, and be humble to what's going on around us? How do we instill that into our youth today? Because I feel that that's missing. You know,
Yeah.
you and I came up in a military family as well. My dad, listen, he was in the Air Force 27 years. So again, I understand that regiment. I understand him being gone on temporary duty, and just a lot of the things that he went through as well. But I don't see that really, unfortunately, happening with a vast swath of. Again, I'm focusing on our youth right now.
Mm.
Mm,
For our youth, for our youth. So, in short, that's a complex solution, and I'm gonna just share what I happened to me. As Even before I joined Special Forces, I was taking classes. I think at the time I probably was about 20 years old, 19 years old. I was taking classes at night. And I was like, yeah, that's why I joined the military, because I wanted to get money for college. And my mom, oldest of three boys. But I was in a philosophy class one time, and we were reading about Socrates. And
mm,
you've probably heard this term. I'm ignorant. I know nothing. So that's what did it for me. And since that day, I read that, and I've always been a person to learn. I mean, we're talking mid '90s. I taught myself to do a lot of things. I taught myself how to build computers. This was like 286s and 386
you
before it
flashing
was
back,
even like
boy. Yeah, you flashing
streaming.
back.
So for the youth to get there, I mean, I have kids in their 20s now, and I have a 11-year-old. And my 11-year-old, because I feel like I've become a better parent with the first three, and then the ropes they put me through, the game they put me in, and what I've learned from them. Now I still don't know everything about raising kids, because this is a new era now.
Right.
We have internet. There's so many other influences out there
Exactly.
when they leave our house. When you and I were growing up, it probably was the biggest influence was drugs.
Hmm.
Don't get on the street, don't get on the corner, and gangs.
Right.
That's still there, but there's other influences. There's other kids. There's things that people want. They want the shiny this or that, or they want to go fast. They want to eat. They want the short route to success. And that's
Talk about that because I know where you want to go. Go ahead and dive into that, right? Because that's going to get you nowhere fast,
yeah,
right? You got to
the
put in some
short
work.
route to success, and I think what it's gonna take, and unfortunately for every person, as we are adults now growing, um, if I knew that getting a mentor was a key thing, and I didn't realize it until I was reading, I was like, you know what? My coach was my mentor. I didn't really realize. I thought he was just my coach. I never thought of him as a mentor like we think about mentors and speak of mentors today. I didn't even look at him like he was my coach. That was my wrestling coach. That was my football coach. But when you grasp the concept of mentorship, that's how you do it. That's the quickest way to get what you want. Get attached to somebody who's either doing it, and you have to be open for counsel. Just bottom line, you have to be open and have your mind open for counsel. You
Open for
have to.
counsel, man. I'm gonna write
I
that down.
always lead.
That might be my next T-shirt. Okay.
I always lead when even today, last week, I met a gentleman. He invited me out to speak. He has this big network. He's a prominent dentist in the sleep uh, uh, specialty is sleep apnea and helping folks deal with that. And he was like, hey, you could give me a call and we could talk. And when I emailed him back and I texted him, I was like, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Hey, I'm open for counsel. Any advice or recommendation you can give me, I'm all ears, because that's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. You got to be teachable, and that's one of the attributes of a Green Beret. They give us a whole bunch of aptitude tests, and we get assessed, and they're looking to see, before we go to the Special Forces qualification course, are we receptive to learning
Mm.
new ideas, and how easy will it be for them, cadre, to teach us? And that's just an attribute. Like I said, when you show up to those places, you have it or not. It's
It's-
binary. You have it or not. There's
That's
no in
true.
between.
I love. Don't pay attention to the noise. Yeah. The sergeant is yelling. Yeah, the sergeant is screaming. Yeah, there's a lot of activity going around, but there's a lot more under the curtain, under the cover that's happening. The assessment, the evaluation, and things of that nature. I appreciate you going into that, man. All right, so I threw you off course a little bit. I put a
Oh no,
fork
I'm
in the
with you.
road. So we got we got the G as the game. Learn it, know it, live it, love it, all of that. A is
Yeah.
for what?
The A is for being authentic, being
Mm,
real, and I would say, as long rolling in, and I'm not just talking like you said. This is not just for marketing or this or that or school or relationships or workplace. And I mentioned, from within, and I'm gonna share something with your audience right here. And I like to share this because I want people to know that I'm a real person,
mm.
right? I'm a real person. So I'm gonna reintroduce myself. My name is Chris McPhee. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and it's been 9 years since I've committed to a life of sobriety. And it almost cost me my career as a Green Beret. It almost cost me my relationship with my wife. And it cost me a lot of opportunities because I was not being authentic with myself, knowing that I had a problem. Some of those things that were happening during that time, deployments, relationships, stress, being alone and depression, all that stuff. If anybody's listening to this, we either have done it or we know a friend or somebody in our family who's been a victim or have fell short and overcome by alcoholism. So that was an eye opener for me, and I had to be real. And good thing I had a mentor, and he told me straight up. He was being real with me. He said, one of the most embarrassing things I had to do at 3 a.m. is call somebody after being in the metal bracelets and said, hey, I got a DUI and it's bad. And so he was like, well, I see you in the morning. And I went in. It was my team sergeant, another guy. I call him the Oracle. To my day, he's been watching over me and putting me in the right direction. And I aspired to be like him because he never drank. He never done these things, but he was so sharp. He was so spot on with everything. His thought process was always clear. He always, now I want to say the right thing to do. He always knew what the best solution was for the situation. Because I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I think, what is the best solution for the situation? What is the best thing we can do right now? And with him and with that happening to me, getting a general letter, a reprimand, almost getting kicked out the army, I was almost losing my clearance, almost losing my tab, and being back on the street. Where I started, I had to start being real with myself, and that was it. People on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, they go like, "Oh, I'm gonna make these New Year's resolutions. I'm gonna do this." And for me, in the day of 2013 on January 1st, walking my dog, I was like, "Hey, I just need to do one thing," and that was it. I stopped drinking cold turkey that day. It was hard, 30 days, 1 month, 1 year. And then, even to this day, I try to keep it real and keep it authentic and stay learning the game, stay learning the student, because I believe that's what's keeping me focused on being the real Chris McPhee, because the other guy, that wasn't the real Chris McPhee. This is the real Chris McPhee, because if I didn't make that change or that pivot, we like to use that word a lot. If I didn't make that transformation to becoming this person and living a life of sobriety, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be talking to you today. So that's to be real. And then just to tie it into everything that we do in your workplace. We know we got bosses that they're either fake with us or coworkers that's fake with us. And, we got to keep the peace. That's the politics of the workspace and our relationships. We would like to be as real as we can be with our spouse or our girlfriends or what have you. And it's hard. It's hard being, and then being real doesn't mean being rude. So don't get me twisted right
Wow.
now.
Yeah. Okay.
Being real doesn't mean being rude. You could be a real person and be authentic without being rude. You could tell somebody like, you know what? That's not a good option for me. I'm not doing that. And say it with conviction and not be rude.
And you will have more respect as well for that, right? Just by
Yeah.
you, and just like Ed was saying, appreciate that comment. Well, appreciate the story, because I had it in my notes determining on, if we were going to go that route, but it really kind of flown into kind of the direction of what we're talking about. So shouts out to you on that, man. Appreciate that. And like Ed was saying, thank you for your authenticity.
No, man, that's coming up with this G.A.P mindset. That was part of it, man. Like that, it's a real story. Like,
yeah.
I don't have to fake it. It's not fugazi. It's not a facade. It's not smoke and mirrors. Like, if you are listening to this, when you meet me in person, you'll be like, that's the same guy.
Same cat.
Because a lot of folks that's on these cameras and on these podcasts, I'm not calling nobody out.
Go ahead.
That's not the real self. I'm gonna just say it. I'm gonna just be real and say it. You're not being real. Yeah. You guys know who you are. You know who you are.
We're gonna have to have another conversation about that, because I'm
gonna get hey. You know what?
Don't start nothing.
I'm not a man of violence, but don't push me.
No. you got some things. You got some things in the closet just in case.
Hey, that's the clean version. That's the clean version.
Mr. McPhee has some training. I'm just from the street there. I'm just from Hampton, Virginia, right? You got to. We're deviating. Okay.
They help me refine my hood skills.
I understood. I understand. Listen, man, but again, that's true as well. And I think tying that back in, knowing where you are, doing what you're doing, understanding your situation, understanding your consequences, understanding pros and cons of everything that you're dealing with, being real and authentic to yourself allows you to be respected in any of those environments as well, right? Coming out with the statements that you were just saying just now, right? I mean, that sets precedence as well, and I think allows folks listening to this and now or on the replay say, you know what? Okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's been through the fire. He's still going through the fire, right? So I can relate. He can relate. I mean, he speaks with truth. He speaks with someone who has gone through, some hard times in his life. And look at him now. He's still working on it, right? Because we're never at perfection. Just like on surveys and reviews. I never give anybody a 10. I always give them a 9 or something. Yeah, and there's always room for improvement, right? So you're always still marching toward that end goal, but interestingly enough, so I understand the G and I understand the A, but P seems to be very. I don't know that comes kind of out of the ether. I love it, but just talk to me about why P is what it is. And folks, I want you to pause. I want you to listen. And I told you if you didn't have a piece of paper, and if you didn't have a pen, Chris McPhee is talking, ladies and gentlemen. So pay attention, please. Go. Let's go
No,
with it,
no,
brother. Let's go with it.
no. I love it. I love it. So the P, where did that come from? Why is it P? What's the backstory on P? Real quick. Good friend of mine, Donnell Johns. I met him a couple years ago, around 2019, in Washington D.C., where I was living. I live in Harker Heights, Texas now. So I started when I retired. I moved to Washington D.C. and got into the circuit there with the veteran entrepreneurship community there, Bunker Labs, some other folks there, and I got connected with Donnell Johns. He runs an organization called Veterans Growing America, and he heads an organization for entrepreneurship called 1 Million Cups. If
Mm,
you've heard of that, and it's a nationwide organization that stands up on, I want to say it's Wednesday, and you get a chance 5 minutes to pitch your business and present your challenge question, and then you have a room of entrepreneurs that give you feedback on solutions to that question. So that's how I met him. But one thing about him, I noticed, I was like, he's never talking about himself. He's always got somebody on camera talking about what good they're doing. It kind of helps also too, but he's a retired sergeant major uh, um, from the army, and I'm watching him, and I'm assessing, because that's one of my traits and skills I've learned is I
hmm
have to spot and assess. I have to spot and assess. I did it as an instructor. I could look at a guy, and within a couple of days, I could tell if he's gonna make it or not.
Wow.
I just know.
Yeah.
You 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 just know. And then the guys who don't make it, you it's something happened. Either they got hurt or it's a mental thing. It's not that they're not able. Something's mentally blocking them from performing. But the guys who are showing up on day one that are not real, they're just kind of trying it out to see if this is it. I could spot them out. So Donnell's always promoting. And I was like, I need something for the P. And I said, I got learn the game. I got being authentic, but what I'm gonna use with P, man? I said P was P, people promote. I said, I got it. That's my thing. Green Beret Media, promote, inform, inspire, right? So I was like, okay, promote, practice promoting, because it's a practice.
Right.
People don't, it's hard for people to promote other people unless there's some deep incentive there. Like maybe you're hosting a show, or
Let me write
this
that down because I'm gonna get back to that too, because that's a problem that I have as well. Why is it so hard? But go ahead.
I don't know, and I've been playing with that too, because I keep saying it. I'm like, it's a real thing, because it's like with marketing, and one thing we learn is, like, you've heard the statement, "What's in it for me?" The
hmm
customer, what's the with them? Like,
hmm
what's the value for the customer? What's the value proposition? Anybody that's trying to, if they think they are holding something of value, even people who have a valuable business, and somebody's like, "Hey, I want to partner with you," we're like, "Well, what's in it for me?" Versus
hmm
just saying, "Well, what you got? Let's see what we could do together. I mean, you seem like a cool guy or gal. Let's take a stab at it." But it's no, it's like, "Well, what do you got in mind? What are you bringing to the table?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So watching Donnell and just getting to the point where I've seen all these things in the space about if you want to be a person of influence, if you want to be a leader of influence, if you want to influence people, then you have to practice promoting other people. Like period. Like your stock value. Who doesn't want to go and hang out with somebody that's going to promote them?
Yeah.
I'll wait for it. I'll wait for it. If you don't like that, like what? Compliments? That's a form of promoting other people.
Yeah.
We love compliments, you know? We love compliments. We love to be on stage with an award in our hand. We like to be on the first place spot on the podium and people talking about us. Like, so I have no problem bigging up James Hicks. I have no problem bigging up Janae. I have no problem bigging up all the guys on my team. Ruben, Kurt, Rod, Don. I have no problem doing that because I know what's the value in that, like people will gravitate to you. Like, hey, you seem like a cool guy. Like, hey man, that's just my thought
Yeah.
about it. You have to practice promoting other people, and
And
it's not all about self promotion. Because people think about all the feeds on social where there's always like, buy my stuff, yo, get with me, yo,
check
yo,
out
I'm
check
me,
out my
yo, yo,
course.
yo, 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 yo. Like,
Yeah.
think who likes that feed? Nobody.
Right.
It's annoying. So that's it, man. Learn the game, be authentic with yourself and others, and practice promoting other people. That's the gap. Living in the gap. Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that. Ooh.
Somebody better write that now. So again, I want to circle back to that because I think there's value in practicing promoting people for you as well. There's a reciprocal value for that, right? Yeah, you're speaking highly, and you're speaking authentically, and you're speaking truthfully about the other folks that you're talking about. But you bring them on camera, you bring them on stage, or you're promoting them in a conversation. But there's an intricate benefit and value, and I think from a mental perspective for you as well by being someone who is um, more positive in your conversation, more positive about the stuff that comes out of your mouth, right? If you got nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. You've heard that from old school too,
Yes,
right? But
yes, we grew
I
up on
think
that
if you
same line.
right, if you've got more positive attributes and more accolades to give folks, I think you in turn, and I'm just going to summarize and say this, you in turn want to live and be better because you in turn want Chris McPhee to be up there on stage talking about you, right, and saying good things, not, oh, don't be messing with James, right? He's not, he's always in it for him instead. But again, by what goes around comes around. We can use all the little adjectives and all those statements, but I think that all falls into that as well, right? By
Mhm.
being a positive influence or positive, my new word. I'm gonna drop this here when you write down. There's only two other people that know what my new word is after focus and after influence. Advocate.
Advocate.
So being a positive advocate for others around you, I think has a not I think I know has a positive influence on your mental and well-being as well.
No,
Uh,
you're spot on. I mean, for me, the reason why it's easy because for one, I just don't have the mental space for it.
man, so you're too tired, right? You don't
I
you
just
don't feel like
don't.
dealing with it. Yeah,
Like I'm not saying I'm like some old Yoda, but I'm pushing 50.
I already passed that. Look, I'm
So like
so
what I'm talking about. So
yeah.
and I see all my friends that are there that are 60 and 65, and I'm looking at, I'm like, I'm at this stage now. I'm like, I don't have the mental capacity for it, and it's even before I even got out of the military. When I went back to my unit, I'm back online and I'm working out in the gym one day, and I see this soldier. He's just looking at me. I got my headphones on. I'm just like, yeah, I'm in the zone, and he just keeps looking at me. And I look over like, yo, man, I owe you money. Like, what's the deal? And he's like, "Hey, hey, are you Sar McPhee?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, man? What can I do for you?" He's like, "Oh, you were my cadre when I was in Q course." And normally the guys I remember are the guys that gave me a hard time. If you didn't give me a hard time, that means I don't have to. Those are the guys that get my attention.
Mm.
The guys that I need to test and measure them to make sure, because what happens is those are the guys who might end up on the same ODA on the same team with me. So I let that through the system, and it might be on a team with one of my other buddies, because in the world we are, the business we're in, the currency is life, right?
Oof.
So
Oof.
when we're not talking about money, means nothing to me. Like, yeah, I'm not no millionaire, but when it comes to respecting people and having meaningful relationships, I'm still at that mindset. Like, I would do anything for you because I feel like you'll do the same for me.
Exactly.
But no, that's not the mindset. So, like, those of you who are connected with me, that's my mindset. I has not changed. Like, I would go all in for James Hicks. I would go all in for for Janae, because he's a good dude. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, it's just I don't have the mental capacity. Even folks that I've had disagreements with, we'll have a stern conversation and I will cut loose. And I'm gonna just say what I'm gonna need to say, not be rude, be professional. Even when I've resigned for jobs, I've had CEOs like, "Hey man, can you give us more than?" I was like, "Look, man, the will at law says this is a two-way street. So you could fire me tomorrow, but you want me to give you 10 days notice? That's a courtesy, bro.
I'm knocking
Come
out the
on,
door right
man.
now.
Yeah, I could leave. I'm giving you a courtesy because the guy who is my actual lead and my manager, I like him. I like
Crazy,
him.
man. That's
So
crazy.
that's one thing I learned transitioning in the military and working in the space, because I had people, they just was rude to me, man. And I was just like, I know you don't need to know where I came from, and I know it really doesn't matter for you to you, but you're not gonna talk to me like that,
Right. Right.
you know?
That, and again, that all goes back into the concept of, the A and the P, right? Being authentic,
Yeah.
promote other folks, because again, that in turn comes back around to you, and in the game, knowing your surroundings, knowing your environment. This is, folks, I don't know if you thought we were just going to talk about lights, cameras, f stops, and those kind of things, but I knew Mr. McPhee was going to come in here and bless y'all with something. So again, if you
Oh
didn't write it
man.
down, I told you 3 times, but you can go
Yeah.
and watch the
They can
replay.
watch it on a
You know what
replay.
I'm saying? I told y'all to get it right here.
No, man.
Tell folks what you are into now, man, because I'm thinking, I'm knowing that you're gonna have a couple of folks Googling Chris McPhee after they hear this, and you've got a long resume of things that you're into. Again, from the content creation perspective, from the entrepreneur perspective. Uh, I am slightly upset with Triple Nickel though, because, and I told you about this ahead of time, my shirt, your expedited shipping. Well,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know, maybe I could have ordered it earlier, but I won't get into that either. That's
No, no,
neither
no.
here nor
Hey,
there. But I could have swore that when I
take care of that for
paid
you.
for that expedited shipping, that it would be here today, so I could rock my triple
I can
nickel
take care of
diversity.
that. I can
I don't
take
know.
care of
You know somebody at the company. Maybe their chief marketing officer or something. I don't know. Let,
that.
let me. So
Oh,
you tell the people what you up to while I bring up a couple of these websites, specifically this triple nickel one here. So
so
folks.
let's go. So that's top of mind, and the reason why I'm gonna go top of mind with that, my biggest project right now is Triple Nickel. We are a lifestyle apparel brand that unapologetically celebrates diversity and inclusion for all. So the CEO and three of my other co-founders, Ruben Ayala, Curtis Riggs, and Rod Graham, and myself, we are the members of Triple Nickel. And this started around the end of 2020. We launched on Veterans Day. And with the height of all the things that's going on with the George Floyd and a lot of, you know, uh, uh, shootings and incidents, Black Lives Matter popping up, and a lot of protesting going on worldwide across the country when it comes to this thing called diversity and unity. So the idea formed, and boom, we formed like Voltron, I would say, and for veterans, for members of the 82nd Airborne Division. So just to give you some backstory, where the Triple Nickels, where the name derived from the 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion in the early 1940s, was all black segregated um, airborne parachute unit there. And, during that time in the early 40s, people of color weren't situated or aligned with the careers that was going to help them excel and advance. They was mostly put into those positions, and honest, to be honest and be authentic, set up for failure. But the Triple Nickels, they broke that barrier and broke that cycle for men of color in the 82nd Airborne Division, and they was the first all black successful. They were part of a test platoon, a jump test platoon. So that's where the legacy starts. Myself was in the 82nd Airborne Division. Ruben was in 82nd Airborne. Rod was in there. He's a little older, so he probably was helping packing chutes for the Triple Nickel. And then Cortez Riggs was there in the 82nd. So we didn't know each other, but we all crossed that path. And as a soldier coming through the 82nd Airborne Division, you get a lot of military history about the 82nd Airborne Division. And especially during the month of Black History, the Triple Nickels, if you are a black soldier, or you're a black paratrooper, or someone of color who is interested, or anybody who's interested in the story, you're going to hear about the Triple Nickels. So Rod Graham, one of our co-founders, was connected to the association, and with Ruben and Rod, they were in special forces together, so they were in special forces, the 7th group, I was in 3rd group, and they were a team together. And so they reached out to the association, and the association was like, hey, um, to to alleviate any confusions, you guys spell it Nikel. And so that's why I spelled that way, because some people are like, yo, you guys can't spell. I was like, it's a reason for that. It's a reason for that. Like, follow the storyline.
Yeah.
And so you're hearing it today. That's why I spelled that way. It was inspired to carry on the legacy from the Triple Nickels, and where we're at now, what we're trying to promote. We're not just trying to sell you hats and t-shirts and hoodie. We want to sell you the mindset of diversity and inclusion and living in communities of unity. And we want to be the new trendsetters for that. We blend in with our culture, the Caribbean, some hip hop, those genres of music, because I think we think that music is a common denominator for all. So we even have, last year we had a original song done by Phil Paz. He's an Air Force veteran,
Okay.
and it was like a country ballad, but it was such a touching song called Noble Sacrifice. And we reached out to him. He was like, hey Phil, would you do a song for us for Veterans Day? And he knocked it out, and it was received well by the community, by the veteran community. So we're working with organizations. We're headquarters in San Antonio, Texas, and we're working with organizations like Dream Week. We have another Buffalo Soldiers Motorcycle Club that we're working with, and a couple other Miss Veterans America pageant that they run, and these nonprofits that wanting to raise money, and they have an iconic T-shirt to use to promote their message. So they come to Triple Nickel. So we're not just doing the C2C, we're doing the B2B and the
Nice.
B2O
Yeah.
with customers and organizations. And like, hey, I got this design I want to go. So that's my big project, and I'm gonna do a plug right now.
Do it. Do it.
Oh, voting and promoting. So I know James got the link. If you have the link, if you go to Triple Nickel, our Facebook page, if you go to triplenickel.com, if you go to my feed, Chris McPhee PMP, you're going to see a bunch of videos there, clips, the long form. I've been going live every day. It's the pin fed Black History Ignition Challenge. $25,000 is up for grabs. We're in the semifinals. The last time I checked, we were in 3rd place. So only the top 3 get to go. So that's why we need your vote. It's a popularity vote. vote for us so we could go on to the finals, and we'll be flying out of here on a jet plane to Washington, D.C.
Love it.
to pitch for the $25,000 with the other two finalists. And so that's my biggest project right now that I'm working on. And that is taking all the skills that I've learned over the years, especially with photo, video,
Yeah.
and everything I've learned about marketing and learning how that cycle goes, and all the people that I've met over the years. Um, that's where all my energy is going right now, all my brain power.
I love it, man. I appreciate that, and I see folks that are chiming in the comments, and I know that's people from your community. Thank you for coming
With
over and
low.
joining this conversation. This is
Yes.
this, and I really admire and I love this comment coming in from Ed. Right, we need more of this type of content for real. Appreciate you for making that statement right there, brother.
Thanks,
Try,
Ed.
yeah. Now I can, even though you Army, I'm Air Force. You know, Dad,
That's
I'm
you
gonna get
right
you.
there.
Yeah,
That what
Dad, I'm
you
gonna get
ordered?
you one of these, right? No, no, I ordered the diversity one, but I'm
Okay, okay,
what?
okay.
Oh, look at the sizes. What?
Well,
Okay,
hopefully, I'm when I get off, it's on the way, because I remember I was just in San Antonio yesterday,
right.
and literally
What had happened was
we dropped your stuff at the post office.
what
Like,
did I
just
did
being
order
real.
it. I ordered it about
Hey,
11 o'clock
just
at
being
night.
real.
I will say that, and then did the expediting. I thought it would get here,
I
but
would just, you know what? 30% off your next purchase, man, right now. Everybody listening to the thread right now, if you listening, you get 30% off. Just DM me and like, hey, Chris, I was watching. You said you was gonna give it.
well,
Like, we gotta make.
hold on. We got it. We got it. Let's put some context around it. Let's work on a code, a discount code, or a promo code. We'll do that
Okay, okay,
after we get off, because
okay, okay.
I don't want you to get flooded with the wrong. Because look, we're on Twitter too, and I know there's a gang of folks watching on Twitter, and I just want to make sure that we put some context around
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
But
yeah. There
I
we go. There we
appreciate
go.
that
Hey,
though. I
hey,
do
slow it down.
appreciate.
We're gonna get you a
Look,
discount.
Ed
But
ordering
for
right
you,
now.
my brother, for you
Ed,
directly, I got you. I got you.
I
Let
love
me
it.
let me clean that up.
Yes.
Cancel what I just said. I'm gonna get in trouble up here. You're gonna get me in trouble.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make it right. You, my brother, I got you.
you don't
I'm gonna
try to clean it up.
take care.
Let me
I'm gonna
pull
take
you off real quick to another website and talk a little bit about the work that you do going around. You kind of hinted to it as well, and
care. Yeah.
about your ability, you going out there talking to businesses, individuals, entrepreneurs, talking to our youth as well about project management. I know you're huge on that, folks getting their PMP, and I just wanted to bring this up as well, just so folks can get a inside story about who Chris is.
So, so this one here, the Chris McPhee speaks. This is my baby. I've been nurturing. Short backstory: when I retired, and I was like, hey, I need to soften up my leadership. I can't use the same leadership I was using with Green Berets in the office space. So, and then one of my friends inspired me, just watching Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and all those. I was like, you know what? I could be a speaker, talk about leadership. So I joined the John Maxwell Network. So I'm a John Maxwell team member, and joined in 2017. And I learned this was our first study. All right, so we had to learn this, and we had to study it, and we had to go to the IMC, our big convention, and we have to give our 5-minute talk on about something. So,
Okay.
but goal was for us to pick three of our favorites, and my three favorites are the law of influence, the law of intuition, and the law of connection. So
Mm,
those are my three favorites out of that book. They kind of all just tie into each other, but what you see there is a photo there with the kids, and that's who would have thought I'd be back in my hometown in Miami at Edison High School, which is, if you know Miami, that's in like the belly of Liberty City, the belly of Miami, not downtown, and it's a rough neighborhood. So what was touching about the kids that day, I went to go talk to them with one of my classmates, and they said we didn't know who was coming to speak. We was just glad to uh, have someone come and speak to us, and this was a crew called there's a young boys crew called the five. I think it's called 5,000 Role Models, and this was a a chapter of that at the high school, and I went to them talking about turning losses into wins.
Wow.
That it's not a loss, it's a lesson. If you figure like me getting that DUI was not it was a loss, and if you look at it, but it was a lesson that I had to learn. I had to learn the game of life, and I had two ways to go. I could keep drinking and getting in trouble, or I could tighten it up and then go another direction. So I chose the other direction, and that's why I'm here now. So that with that, yeah, we launched, and I was able to go to Utah a couple of weeks ago and speak to about 40 dentists, and their specialty had nothing to do with the military, but we spoke out of that about the law of influence and how leading with influence and leading from within is what it takes to just lead people. I mean, you got to meet people where they're at. So when I was in Afghanistan, I mean, we jump off our gun trucks, we got guns, we got bullets everywhere. We're looking like aliens to these folks. They're riding, in some places they're still riding donkeys and carriages and
Mm,
living in mud huts and have out, they're farming like it's like 500 BC when I went to
mm,
Afghanistan the first time. I was amazed in 2002, but what we were taught in special forces is when we go into these countries to help to liberate the oppressed, which is our motto, they oppress or libere, uh, you got to meet people where they're at. You got to
mm.
get to know them. You got to build rapport. You got to get off your high horse. And if you're not doing that in your organizations, if you're not doing that in the communities you're working in, if you're not doing that, nobody's gonna follow you. And like, um, if not leading through influence, then you're just walking by yourself.
That gets old. That gets tiring fast. And I mean that yeah, because you can't do this all alone. And I
Yep.
think that is an
Yep.
appropriate way to put the bow on this one right here. Listen, man, let me get focused. Right, that's let me throw a little marketing. Let me get out the way so you can see it on the screen.
Look at it! Look at it! Look at it!
Man,
Yeah,
let me
I
let me
love it.
give you let me give you this. My grandmother, my mother always said this. Let me give people their flowers while you can, and uh, I appreciate you, brother. All right, I want to know and I want to record it. I want people to hear that. I appreciate everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and the stuff that you're going to continue to do
Yep.
for society and for yourself. So folks, you got the links. I'm gonna put the links to what Chris is doing in the description so you can keep up with him. You can holler at me a little bit later and we'll talk about that triple nickel discount code. Uh, but outside of that, man, take care of yourself. We appreciate you for everything you're doing. We are going to have another conversation because we could have kept going for hours upon
Yeah,
hours, but
anytime you want me back,
I,
anytime you want me, yeah, I like to talk,
yeah,
as you can see.
it's all good. It's all good. And I'll turn the lights on. And I'll press record, and we'll keep at it. So, man, be good
Yeah.
to yourself. I appreciate everyone that chimed in. Share this episode with someone who you think can get some value from this. And outside of that, be good to yourself. And I'll talk to you guys later. We out.
Thank you. Thank you.